Hello, I'm Sheila Johnson and I would like to talk to you about this book, Bible Reflections from a Life Devoted to the Poor by Dr. Jember Teferra. It's a book which I edited extensively. Now, who was Dr. Jember Teferra? Dr. Jember Teferra was an amazing woman who saved tens of thousands of people, slum dwellers in Addis Ababa, out of poverty. She was a real advocate for the poor. This is Jember Teferra. She was a small lady with a very quiet voice, but an amazing and passionate personality who wanted to do a lot to save and help the poor in her country, which she could do because she was relatively rich as the niece of Haile Selassie. But anyway, because she was relatively rich, she was able to be educated in the UK, which is where she met Liz Scotland, who later was to become the wife of Nigel Scotland, who was the leader of Glenfall Fellowship, which is how myself and my husband Angus Johnson got involved in the work, because this became Jember's home church, which sponsored her and supported her and fundraised for her. In fact, she used to come and visit every year. Now, after Jember had been educated in the UK, she also trained in the UK as a nurse before returning to Ethiopia in the 1980s, marrying Haile Gorgas, her husband, who was a government official. But when they had small children, not that long afterwards, they were both put into prison because the regime there was taken over. The Marxists took over the regime, and they were considered not good. They were sort of part of the government, so they were put into prison. Now, prison in Ethiopia is not what we would imagine it to be here. A lot worse. Jember was put into a cell with 120 other women, and one toilet facility and rat-infested mattresses, which was absolutely shocking. And she stayed there for 5 years. But I'd like to read an extract from the book as to how Jember felt about this. In my experience as a political prisoner, I remember that I resisted arrest not only from the Marxist authorities but also from God. God had a purpose for me to be in prison, but at first I questioned all of that and had a period of rebellion. But God used my period in prison for me to be an evangelist, a counsellor and a nurse, and many other roles. It was then I realised that I was in prison for a purpose. But as Jember came out, the whole idea of helping the poor came to her even more strongly, having been in those sort of circumstances. She saw the big buildings in the background of the Europeans and the Americans and other people that were built and that were strong and good. And then she saw behind that the slums of the people, living in cardboard shelters which didn't protect them from the elements, with sewage running down the streets, rats, no running water, and she was appalled at the difference, the contrast. I cannot put blinkers on, this is what she said. I cannot put blinkers on and ignore what I see around me. It is not making me comfortable. I feel that God has not meant human beings to be so degraded, living lives worse than that of a stray dog. These people don't have access to the most basic human needs. Many live in simple cardboard shelters which give them no protection against the elements. A lot of the children don't have any time for schooling, having to work 4 to 5 hours a day. Young people are often forced into taking up a life of crime on the streets, and the old beg. Jember was determined to do something about this, and she was conscientiously worked hard night and day to put her ideas into action and negotiate with the Ethiopian government. You can see in this picture she's got loads of papers. She was always working, sometimes at a risk to her own health. She also travelled across the world to fundraise for the projects. She would visit our church certainly every year, and she went to Holland and America. One of the original fundraisers was Bob Geldof's Live Aid, came to know Jember, and after that Comic Relief. So she had some big fundraisers, but there was a lot of needs. Jember trained up these girls, which were called yellow girls, to help the people. You can see why that they were called yellow girls by the yellow coats they wore. These were helping the communities and by training them up. And instead of these cardboard shelters where people would cook outside, she built these concrete houses with all the facilities, protection from the elements. But all the people couldn't be housed in these houses. There wasn't enough money or enough room to do that. So some of them were put into condominiums or flats. And these were, even if they had communal cooking facilities and communal toilet facilities, it was still a lot better than what they had been used to. She also set up a sponsorship for the children to give them books and pens and facilities. In fact, people that used to travel over, and a lot of them, us from our church, would travel over year by year, would take books and pens and various other facilities for the children. But the funds would also raise them. She gave the children physical education to keep them off the street, keep them healthy. And part of the sponsorship programme was to provide children with a uniform and at least one proper meal a day. So therefore the parents could afford to send the children to school rather than them working at home. Uniquely though, Jember's sponsorship programme from the start also thought of sponsoring the elderly, because they also needed a place to meet others, to get a meal, to get a hot drink. And those who couldn't access the meeting place, they would give them food on foot rather than meals on wheels, because there weren't any transport. But she also set up careers and opportunities for the parents to earn money. She brought in weaving machines, sewing machines, as in this picture. She taught them crafts such as basket making. And she would take these crafts, when she went to fundraise, she would take the crafts so that she could sell them, and the money could go back to the people for the work that they'd done. When I visited the project myself, we even saw a man who made a living out of hiring out a table football game. So he would charge for each session that the people would play for. And of course there's the most obvious way of earning a living, by selling their produce, their fruit and vegetables, etc. But Jember also realised that she wasn't going to live forever, and she needed to train up more people, not just the yellow girls, but leaders that would be able to take her place. And so in the later years, she built the Institute, which is still run by her daughter Memenashe, and that trains up young people to take over and to help the communities. Now I want to talk a little bit about the book. What drove Jember to do all this? Why was she so passionate about this? Well, she had a deep faith in Jesus Christ. Although her own life had had its share of tragedy, soon after her husband came out of prison, he died, and on the same day her son committed suicide. Lots of other tragedies happened to her. But Jember devoted her life to the Lord's service because she believed it was important. She believed these people needed to have dignity, to have their own life. And all of the projects that she set up, like the housing, the condominiums, etc., provided even more opportunities for the people to be employed. For example, to build the houses, to build the condominiums. The schools meant teachers. Meals provided meant people to serve them, etc., etc. So everything that Jember provided for the people, health care as well, nurses, would mean that the people could get employment and dignity, feel that they were helping themselves rather than just being given handouts. And as I edited the book, Jember, and modernised all Jember's thoughts and that, which run through the Bible in about 20 years with her prayers and reflections, it challenged my faith, and I know it will yours, and I commend it to you. Now, the price of the book is £10, which has to cover our printing and publishing costs. But over and above that, if you'd like to donate to either the Institute or the sponsorship programs, we'd be glad to send the money directly to the charities. That's myself and my collaborator, Arthur Champion. So thank you for listening, and I do hope that you have enjoyed listening to the life of an amazing woman. Thank you.